Hello. I'm just having a conversation with Pat Grosse, and we were talking about grants and what's important or what the priorities of them are right now. Pat, can you explain what the importance of grants are or looking at them are right now?
Well, I was a little bit surprised going into the situation we're in at the moment at the number of state and federal grants which are open, but not necessarily for the current sort of stresses that businesses are going through right now. What I'm finding as I've been working on grants in the for aged care providers or for childcare providers, and they're to do with business improvement. Now, some of these grants would have happened anyway, but the situation has become even more sort of irrelevant. And so looking at this, what I'm finding, and also just recently, there's been a grant for female startups,
Right.
which was an interesting one, a federal one, and a really great opportunity for women. And I've actually been working on some grants now. What I've found, and I've just recently again, commercialization grants, accelerating commercialization, which is a federal government grant. So there are industries that are still looking at the future
Yeah.
from now.
And
So
is it's really important that they are looking to the future and not the immediate time right now?
well, even now, some of these grant lines are such that if successful, the projects will start as early as July.
Right. Okay.
Or the female boosting female startups is November.
Right.
Or there is some sort of urgency or some quick turnaround. It's a bit like business as usual. But what I am finding is that as the clients are coming forward and I'm working with them, I could either be writing the grant applications, I say with them, because I do know their expertise and they need mine. In one case, I've been doing, they've written their own expression of interest and I've been working through it with them. And it's interesting how that to, to write a grant application needs this particular mindset.
Yes.
And if you are a sort of a business and you want to come forward and you want to write a grant, and you look at the questions and you answer the questions you think they need to be answered, and you're really not answering the questions.
And that would happen with a lot of people, and that's why they're not successful with their grants at all. So, coming to someone like you and having the conversation and in giving you the information to talk to look at what is actually needed for them and whether it's the appropriate grant, then you are the person, you are the go-to person to talk about what's available right now, how it can help them not in the immediate future, but down the track, maybe a couple of months or a few more months. So, what do they need to do to find out about, you know, what's available to them, if anything is at all?
Well, it's not so much even about what they need to do to find out, because I'm sure there are plenty of sources out there that will put this grant in front of their faces one way or another, whether it's online via social media, whether it's through networks. Even the local councils may have a newsletter that goes out to businesses. They might get to that point where there is one in front of them, and that's where I sort of say, look, this is what you really need to be looking at. And look, I'll give you some recommendations here, basically, and this is what I'm finding. One, the grant is not about you. And
Yes.
you, it's about what you can do to achieve an outcome for whoever's funding you.
Yes.
And therefore, if you think with that mindset, as you write the response to the application, to the questions, you are going to find that your language changes and your approach changes.
Right. Okay.
So that's one of the sort of that number one when I'm working is I'm saying, this is what you want to do, but how does it fit with the objectives and outcomes that the funder's looking for?
Yeah.
And the other one, which is really sort of important, and I was having a conversation with somebody this morning about that, is never make assumptions. And and this particular client, when they did their first draft, because this was one that I actually worked, they preferred to do it very technical, and it came out as very technical, and I noticed two things. So this is number 2 and number 3, to be honest with you. Number 2 is they were making assumptions. They were not really describing the situation.
Not the outcome.
Not even the situation, even the situation.
Really?
So it could be, that what you're trying to do here, and they might just to summarize it, and I'll be picking out keywords and I'm saying, that's a very strong word, but explain it, please.
Yes.
And this came out of the exercise was that they said, we assumed, and actually in one of those, I do it as a 3-step process, and in one of those stages I actually was tempted to say something like, you're making too many assumptions, but I didn't. I held back, and it was interesting that the client themselves said, we made too many assumptions.
Yeah, and I suppose getting them to realize that, isn't it? And really knowing what the grant is, what the grant is for, and what the outcome of the organisation who's providing the grant.
Well, I'll give you an example of this assumption, because I used to work behind the desk in the funding sector itself. So somebody, it would have a look at applications, and even though we knew very well the local area, if it wasn't in the application that this description of the demographic, then we scored it down. And I give an example is that I've actually worked on some really successful grants using gentrification and the impacts of gentrification and in certain areas as part of the argument. And if I hadn't really described that locality, if somebody was looking at it 3 years later, and that area had become all, sort of middle class. When I say middle class, the business class, full of apartments, where there are some population growth areas that do that, then people will be going, what are we talking about? These people who are disadvantaged in this area. There's no disadvantage. Whereas at the time that the application was written, the process was still happening, and there was still that marginalized group. Yeah. So yeah, that's an example of why you have to make sure. Another one is the recent episodes with the Tasmanian minister in the sports area, where the accusations of allocating grants in the space to clubs in areas where they wanted the votes for the next election, if you remember that.
Right.
Few months back. And that was where somebody like the Auditor General had come in and was looking over the process. And that's what happens, especially in the government area, is that it's not just about making those decisions about who gets funded, it's about the process of how the decisions were made. So somebody could come 2, 3, 4, 5 years into the future and look at the process.
Yes.
And that's what happened here. So if you understand that you have got to be as clear as possible and cross the T's, dot the I's in explaining, but be concise in doing that, then that's going to help you to get over the line. And the third part of that, which is also tied to assumptions to some degree, is actually being able to answer the specifics of the question.
And what the question really asks.
Or specifically what it's asking. You read a question, you get it into your mind, oh, this is what it's about, but actually there are parts to the question that you're not addressing. Yeah. So that's, those are the 3 key areas I would say that if you're going to look for a grant or start a grant, is to understand what the funder's looking for. It's to be able to, as I said, answer the questions and not to make assumptions.
Beautiful. So if there's anyone out there that wants to find out about more information about grant writing or what's available to you, you're the person to go to. So how do they contact you?
Well, a couple of things. We've developed what we call a business case for grants. So even before you go out to look for somebody to, either you looking for a grant yourself or somebody to write a grant, let's have a business case together about exactly what it is that you're looking for before you match what you want to do with what's available out there. And we've got copies of this available. So if you are interested, you can contact me at support@thecommunityentrepreneur.com.
Beautiful. Support
And
at
can I say the other thing we do is, yes, we do have a full range of services. We can write grants with you. We can assess what you're already putting forward and give you recommendations, a sort of an objective. And that was the other thing, that feedback I got this morning in particular, was that coming from the outside, if you're so focused on your business and you're writing with your business, it's really good to have somebody from the outside who can be so objective and help you to make sure that you've answered the questions correctly. And then we also have a training program which we're going to actually revisit, and we're going, looking at actually offering the service again in the coming weeks, where we can actually, put you through a training on grant writing over a 6-week period, which is intensive, which we can help you to work through your own application, even if it's fictitious, but we can base it on real world requirements. And in that time frame, you're going to be working with me as well. So that's an interesting feature moving forward. Moving forward, can I just say, look, I think it's going to be interesting times, because coming out of this current situation, grants are a great way to kickstart the economy.
Yes, a great way. So let's have a conversation with Pat so you can find out how you can support your business in the future, and also to see what else is available out there for you. Just have that conversation, and that's at info
Support
at communityentrepreneur.com. Thank you, Pat, for that. Very informative about the grants.
You could go to our website as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you.